In the name of Almighty God, I am Master Sankosha, and today I want to go through the joint axis and local coordinate system. The local coordinate system of a joint, which can be seen as rigidly connected to the source attachment, consists of three axes: joint axis C1, second axis C2, and third axis E3. We specify the initial direction joint axis E10 using one of the following methods. Method 1 gives a component explicitly in a selected coordinate system. Method 2, select one of the axes of the selected coordinate system. Method 3, select an edge that is parallel to the joint axis. For all methods, the axis is normalized to give a unit vector. Constraints. Constraints are used to restrict the relative motion between the two components sharing a joint. You can specify the upper and lower bound of the relative motion. Applying constraint and the relative motion can be interpreted as placing an imaginary stopper that restricts the motion of the destination attachment with respect to the source attachment in its prescribed direction. Theory for joint constraint. Now I want to go to the locking. The locking feature is used to lock the relative motion between the two components connected to a joint. You specify limits on the relative motion in the form of an upper allowable. This can be interpreted as an imaginary object like a snap hook that looks one of the free relative degrees of freedom of the destination attachment when it reaches their limiting value. The locking feature differs from the constraint in that the value of the particular joint degrees of freedom becomes constant for the rest of the analysis after it attains its prescribed limiting value. Theory for joint locking. Now I want to go through the springs and dampers on joints. You can use the spring and damper features to apply a spring or a dashpot to act on the relative motion in the joint. A dashpot can be used to account for various kinds of losses at the joint. The spring can be given a pre-deformation so that the spring equilibrium position is not the same as the initial state. Theory for springs and dampers on joints. Elasticity in joints. In the directions in which relative motion is not allowed in a joint, the default case is that the source and destination attachments are rigidly connected. It is possible to insert an elastic connection by setting joint elasticity to elastic joint in the settings for the joint. There are several occasions when you may want to use this option. There is physical flexibility in joint like a bushing. The mechanical system is over constrained by the chosen set of joints. You can then release some degrees of freedom by making them elastic. This should typically be down in directions where no significant forces act. You have a mechanism which is not possible to model by the built-in joints. You can then add degrees of freedom to the built-in joint by making them elastic and not supply any stiffness. The joint gets deactivated and the two bodies are no longer connected after a certain time in a transient simulation. You can then use the elastic joints for this purpose by making their stiffness and damping properties a function of time. In addition to elasticity, you can also add viscous damping to a degrees of freedom selected as being elastic. The theory for joint elasticity is described separately for each joint type. Joint elasticity in prismatic joint, joint elasticity in hinge joint, joint elasticity in cylindrical joint, joint elasticity in planar joint, joint elasticity in ball joint, joint elasticity in slot joint, and joint elasticity in reduced slot joint, joint elasticity in fixed joint, joint elasticity in universal joint. Prescribed motion. With prescribed motion, you can control the relative motion in a joint either by prescribing the displacement or the velocity. This is useful when the degrees of freedom in the joint are not free but are a noun function of time. This is common in the field of robotics, for example, evaluating reaction force for the prescribed motion by selecting evaluate reaction forces in the reaction force settings section of the settings for described motion has several benefits over evaluating it using joint forces and moments computed using weak constraints. It includes the contributions of springs, damper, and friction applied at the joint. It works even if there are redundant constraints in the system, especially in a rigid body system, because joint constraints cannot be applied in the weak form in such a system. It is computationally more efficient as it adds fewer degrees of freedom. Tutorial for prescribed motion on joints, applied forces and moments on joints. The applied forces and moments feature is used to apply forces and moments on all types of joints. It can be applied at the source of destination joint attachment or directly to the joint degrees of freedom. Theory for applied forces and moments on joints. Friction section. The friction feature is used to add frictional loose to a joint. It is available for prismatic joint, heat joint, cylindrical joint, screw joint, planar joint, and ball joint. The friction force is modeled using a continuous friction law, which is capable of modeling a sliding and sticking phenomena. A strict application of Columbus' law involves discrete transition from sticking to sliding and vice versa. As dictated by vanishing relative velocity, these discrete transitions cause numerical difficulties, and to avoid them, the friction force is approximated with a continuous friction law. You see that we have a FAF is equal to minus micro L nu divided by absolute nu multiplied by 1 minus e to the power of minus absolute nu divided by nu 0, where FF is the friction force, micro is the frictional coefficient, n is the normal force, nu is the slip velocity, and nu 0 is the characteristic slip velocity. The term is 1 minus e to the power of minus absolute no divided by nu 0 is called the regularization factor. The regularization factor is not a retardation factor. Regularization factor is used to smooth the friction force discontinuity. The characteristic slave velocity should be chosen to be small in comparison to the characteristic relative velocity encountered during the simulation. The continuous friction law describes both sliding and sticking behavior. That is, it completely replaces Columbus' law. Sticking is replaced by creeping between the contacting bodies with a small relative velocity. Theory for friction in joints, computing joint forces and moments. It is often to interest evaluate the internal forces, the reaction forces in joints. There are three ways to compute forces and moments: summing reaction forces over the boundaries, or using weak constraints, or using penalty formulation. The joint forces and moments are evaluated in the global spatial coordinate system as well as in a joint local coordinate system. The joint forces and moments are referred to a center of joint in the current position. For the joints that have translation degrees of freedom, the center of joint should be interpreted as fixed to source side. When a joint connects two rigid bodies, the default is not to compute the joint forces. The reason is that it is common that rigid body systems are over-constrained, and then numerical problems can occur. Summing reaction forces over the boundaries. This is the default method for computing the joint forces and moments for elastic objects. The computation can be done on either the source or destination attachment. The convention is that the force and moment are the ones acting on the attachment from the joint. The sign changes if you switch between using the source or destination attachment for the evaluation. To use this method, at least one of the components connected to the joint must be flexible. Using weak constraints. When using weak constraints, the joint constraints are applied in a weak form, and the values of the Lagrange multipliers give the joint forces and moments. This works for both flexible and rigid components. The use of Lagrange multipliers can, however, have an effect on the structure of the equation system, which limits the solvers that can be used. The sign convention in this case is that the forces and moments should be interpreted as acting on the destination attachment. Using the weak constraint option in an over-constrained rigid body system often leads to numerical difficulties. There is a celebration around me, and I have to finish my lecture. They are celebrating and screaming too much. They are related mostly to the Cuba country. Yes, you can hear it. I want to upload this lecture immediately now. You can hear it's because they are extracting my frequency. It's very difficult to understand, but Kubayan people can understand it. It's a Havana Syndrome, and you're hearing it's a connected mentality. They are screaming, and I want to because I promised that I will disclose some sort of important information and sensitive data about Havana and Kubayan the next time that they want to celebrate such this and screaming. I want to tell you that they are not just working for the intelligence services. It doesn't matter which sort of intelligence services, if it is Iran, Israel, America, Cuba, Russia, China, Europe. So they are not celebrating, but I have to because I promised them that why they are screaming and making celebration. It's not just because they are a membership of an intelligence services for Cuba. It's not because it's a Havana syndrome. It is because they sold part of their soul. And it's not that something I extracted from the YouTube channel, why it can be some reminder. I have heard it many years ago because they reached to me and they want, I didn't do that. I kept my faith, but unfortunately, they sold a part of their soul. Can you understand me? They are not working and connected to intelligence services. It's not related anything about they are working for intelligence services in Cuba or some other sections. They literally, not metaphorically, literally, I want to disclose this specific formulation of them. They literally sold their soul and they are ready to do anything. This is why they are so much connected. It's also by satellites, which is a very complex technologies, but they don't need it. Their telepathy is too much strong. It's too much. Too much power is vibrating themselves. It's because now they are evil and they don't know, maybe they know, maybe they don't know, but it is because of the deal they did many years ago, or maybe it needs many it needs at least 10 years to reach to this level. They have a high rank, and you think that maybe I'm a crazy scientist, but it's a symmetry. For example, you see my fifth floor. From every single angle, he is very similar to President of Cuba, and it's not accidental. It's not. There is no accidental. It's that they're implanted their agent in a different section, different soils, to see what will be happen, and they reach to them very accidentally to buy their soul, and they sell because they are connected to each other. I don't want to disrespect anyone, but I'm just want to open this architecture. So you are watching a lot of uh, cars with a loud music, specifically when they are carrying the loud music or loud scream. It means that they are in a battle with something that they cannot suffocate it in any means. Doesn't matter. For example, they reached my frequency to the 218, and they are celebrating. They implanted something to me to extract and diminish my frequency, and it's not that they are fooled, because the technology of God is something, some much more power behind it. So there is they are doing something, but they don't know what are they doing. So if you are watching my vicinity, for example, my third, I can specifically recognize them in the picture. That my third flu is the girl who stands behind the president of Cuba. I literally can introduce that I'm living in a region in Tehran, while in this section there are maybe president of Cuba or very near to Cuba I am. And this celebration they are doing is because they are fighting. When they are rotating around me, maybe in the Caribbean, I have a lot of concealed information about Havana Syndrome. It's really, I've worked about it, because one of my professor, they are getting angry. You see, because technology without explanation. You see, it's another drifting. Drifting means that they went to the aggressive battling. When they are screaming and they are happy, it means that they succeed to something. When they are drifting, it means that they are losing something. Yes, of course, they are losing their strength, because I am here to disclose their uh, hidden agenda. In a Carib, some sort of sections is also it's popular. When they found something very tasty, they rotate that things with a celebration by music. Doesn't matter. You must see that they don't have any shirt. They just have any. They just cover themselves by a leaf, and they have some sort of hat. This hat has some sort of feather and multiple feather, and they paint them their own face, and they go by the dancing around the prey. Okay, they are predator. You see, it's a screaming of the Caribbean Havana people. You are literally in a very complex technology and science, which was hidden many years. And now you are watching simultaneously while you are listening to my lecture. You are watching how these Hawaiian are extroverting their inner feeling. It's that they reach, they want something. I swear to my God, if you reach to my sections, you will see and you will find every single thing. And you can decode, decrypt their behavior. It's many years that I saw them. They are literally sold their part of soul, and they gather together. You can hear their screaming. They are making it's not a very ordinary and usual celebration. It's some specific celebration that just has some one meaning. The meaning is that they won some prey. Maybe someone else sold their part of soul, or they won a tasty prey. Literally, they rotate around the prey with a loud music. It's one of, if you are watching them and they are doing it to you, now that they targeted you. And Havana syndrome is a very, it's completely something which is very difficult to tolerate. and they are not concentrated inside the Cuba. As I told you, they scatter their seed, their eggs in many places, unknown places. So till now, I disclosed that they are not just getting salary. It's not because money motivation that they are doing this. They are addicted because they are carry something which is evil, and it needs them many time. I'm here. I am here to disclose any evil plan to the people. So again, thank you so much for watching my tutorial video until the end. Today is the 3rd day of June 2026. Time is 8:09 in the night. I want to immediately uh, upload this lecture because maybe, just maybe, someone can use it. Also, you can literally download the very specific simulation file from my github.com/masterscript.